So this meeting was going to be about Dev 11 and the new JavaScript features that came along with Dev 11. But this Saturday when I came into the office to work on the project, Tim Starr stopped by and informed me that there was a release candidate, 2012. So I had to do a little revamping at the last minute. So it should be pretty good. Who am I? My name is Tom Faltasek. I recently graduated from the University of St. Thomas, majoring in information systems. I've been working in Visual Studio 2008 and 2010 for the last few years, mainly in .NET stuff, obviously, with ASP.NET, MVC3, and every once in a while I get to play along with client-side adventures like JavaScript, HTML, and whatnot. And fun fact, I'm thinking about adopting Alaskan Husky because they're pretty and manly. Who are you guys? If you would just raise your hand if I guess you could consider yourself a seasoned JavaScript developer. Any of them in the crowd? I guess if you're listening online, type something in. What about C# and VB? All right. Any administrative roles? Okay. And anything I missed? I didn't want to offend anybody, so I put others. Java? They're welcome here? Java developers? All right. An overview of the presentation. It's all about when I first came to Intertech, they gave me Trollston's course materials and said, you should learn C#. And I guess I dove into the labs, and Visual Studio really helped me out. All the IntelliSense and the object dot, it showed me everything I needed to know. So I didn't have to spend hours Googling everything. Like you might have experienced if you were to just pick up JavaScript for the first time, use Visual Studio as your IDE. It's kind of like that picture. I guess it's symbolic. This water could be the IntelliSense, maybe. That's not too corny for you guys. And then the pool, there's no water. That's the old way Visual Studio treated JavaScript. And this presentation is going to be about the new way. The primary focus is going to be on the improved and added JavaScript development features. And I tried to group them the best I could. I came up with compliance, IntelliSense, debugging, coding experience, and performance editions. One of the first things you're going to notice when you open up Visual Studio 2012 and even Dev 11 is that there is an application-wide name change. So if you see in this screen grab right here, it says JScript file on the little tooltip. The default name for that file is jscript.js, and this .jscript, all JavaScript in 2012. What does that really mean for us developers? So what, everyone there? I guess I don't really know. I hope that it means we're going to move towards more cross-browser compatibility and less I have to figure out what the differences are between JavaScript and JScript. Hopefully that's in the garbage now, except for supporting older browsers with your web applications. You still got to do that. Just to lay it out, the ECMA script defines the minimum standards for both JavaScript and JScript, and I think there's a bunch of others on the list, like ActionScript and whatnot. So they all kind of derive from ECMA scripts. So they're not completely different. There are minimum standards that set both. There's just a little bit more with JScript, and there's a little bit more with JavaScript, and they don't cross over. So the first topic I want to talk about was IntelliSense. Now, ECMA script 5 compliant. There's auto-reducing statement completion. Tooltips appear with function signature and documentation. Custom XML documentation, which did exist with the previous versions of Visual Studio, but now we have overloading, and I call it object documentation, but I guess I'll show you more details later. We got DOM IntelliSense from IE 10, so that's going to have HTML5 stuff. And the JavaScript IntelliSense references have been added to. Before we did have references, but there's going to be more features that I'll get into. The IntelliSense automatically rebuilds, and there's improved scope accuracy. I'll go into each one of these in more detail now. That's just an outline. So ECMA Script 5 compliance, what does that really mean for us? If you've ever opened up a JavaScript document in Visual Studio 2008 or 2010 or even earlier, you're going to do a dot at some point on a variable or an object, and anything that pops up will probably not be helpful for you because it is not compliant to anything. It's going to be perhaps a toString. That's probably the only one I've ever used out of the IntelliSense. It's really terrible. So that's why I said the thumbs and the bad and the good. The new compliance, it's way better. You have auto-reducing statement completion. You see I have a giant variable name that I declared and set it equal to 123 or 123. And I'm trying to set my string equal to, I typed an M, and we see all the stuff that could be appropriate. IntelliSense is kicking in and trying to suggest stuff. And then in the next screen grab there, I type a Y, and you see the auto-reducing feature. I really do not want to type that again. So now I can hit Tab. A lot of you are familiar with this because the C# and the VB development, but now you don't have to deal with the headaches in JavaScript. The tooltip with function signature and documentation. This did exist in the earlier versions, but that's only if you had the custom XML documentation, which we'll talk about in a second. But it really didn't exist with toString or anything you expected to be in the JavaScript library already. So if I do on my int variable, which remember that JavaScript is not explicitly typed. So Visual Studio can't technically be sure that that's an integer, but it guesses that it's an integer because previously I set it equal to 123. So I do a dot on my int, and you see I get the toString because I typed TO. And the little tooltip here tells me that on an integer, when I do a toString, I can pass it a radix or a radix. I've never actually said that word out loud. What's your guys' thoughts on that? Radix? You should have spelled it that way then. Okay. So it's a radix. But previously, before I even did this presentation, I didn't know that existed. And I go to do the presentation. I just want an example of me doing a dot on an integer. And that pops up, and I already learned something. That would have never happened before. You see the old way we kind of made our functions. I made an add function right here, a little dumb function. And I start trying to use it. And I name my formal parameters in such a way that I know what I'm supposed to pass to that function. The num A and the num B. That is not necessary if you use the custom XML documentation, which isn't actually new, but it was added to, and I'll get to that part in a second. But that's the old way you might have wrote the function. If you want to add documentation, nice documentation, you can do the / summary. Any parameters you have, you can type them, and a return value. I don't think it ever reads this in, so I wouldn't bother putting anything inside of that element. I think I screwed that one up. But you see how it actually gives you a nice tooltip. It says I'm expecting a number, and it's actually telling you what this function is supposed to do, just like you get when you're programming in C# or VB. It's way more convenient, and you can build way more robust applications without having to have ugly documentation. So the new part is the overloading with XML. Pretty much they just added the signature node or elements or whatever you want to call it. You put the summary and the param and the return value into a signature, you can kind of have an overloaded JavaScript function. Technically it's not overloaded because it's still the same function. I know you guys think of overloaded in VB and C# as having a different function with the same signature. And we would think of the function add whatever as a signature. But in this case, we trick the IntelliSense into thinking this is overloaded. And then we have the function written dynamically enough where it is overloaded. So you see in this second signature, I just add another parameter, and I accept another parameter up there. And it's also a number, it's a third number. And you guys should stop me if I ever go through a slide with a red D on there, because I want to show you something for demo. So don't let me skip over those. I guess I just want to elaborate on that. It's hard to explain. Whoa. So this is that same snippet we just saw. I'm going to modify it a little bit, just so you can see how cool it is. I want to accept a Boolean up here, like alert. Perhaps you'd want to add this in for testing purposes. Change its value to whatever you want. It's not compiled, so you really can put whatever you want in there. It's just for your referencing. You see it pop up. I can click on this down arrow for number 2, just like in C# and VB, and it has my parameter and the description. Oh, I got to change this guy. I'll throw this in a statement. Whatever, we're not going to do that. But the documentation will still be the same if we have 1 parameter, 2 parameters, 3 parameters. Yes. Thank you. So if you see that third parameter, beautiful, right? Just like C# and VB. I'll pop back in the presentation somehow. Is that the right button? That back arrow? Yes. Nice. And what I called the object support for the new XML documentation is really just this field element, which if you declare a variable in such a manner, or if you make a constructor out of a function, you can have fields or properties in that variable, or kind of a pseudo object, I guess you might want to call it. And you can also have any functions you might want. And there is IntelliSense for those fields as well. I want to show you. So if I pop into this project, that should be the same snippet. I can do player, because it's in this scope. Actually, I can start typing P, and player should pop up. And you see that tooltip, it says the global player object represents the user in the game. This entire application is a game, but you see that comment above my player variable? It automatically takes those into for you. So even if you're a lazy programmer and don't want to do the triple slash, do the summary and whatnot, it's going to take whatever documentation you already have and try to use it for you. So we see that when I try to type player, that pops up. Then we can do dot. And it looks like I'm a lazy programmer because I only put a field element in there for my speed property. But if I start to type speed, it should show up, and you see the stuff I typed in that field. Isn't that pretty neat? Same thing happens for inner functions. So this pseudo object, I guess you could say, has a draw function. So if we do player.draw, that is also going to work. Returns void, paints the player on the canvas. Sorry about the switching back and forth. Kind of klutzy. I did put a link down there to the documentation on Microsoft's website that explains a lot of this in more depth. If you're interested, there are a few other things that I didn't even understand, really advanced things. So you got to be a pro. I suggest you go look out there and dig around and do some clicking. Perhaps they'll clean it up and make it more readable so I can understand it later on. But for now, I think you're going to have to figure it out on your own. And that's, like I showed in the demo, the standard comments are automatically included if you put them right over the thing you are trying to comment. So if it's a variable or a function or an object or whatever you have, those will be sucked into the tooltip. And the DOM IntelliSense from IE10, that is pretty much support for the HTML5 APIs, or however much IE10 supports those APIs. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same stuff. So if IE10 doesn't have it, Visual Studio is not going to know about it. But they do know about the canvas. Those other things are HTML5 stuff, query selector, DOM storage, cross-document messaging, but I want to show you its support for the canvas since we actually have one in this project. Is it working? Oh, gotcha. So up here, you see I declared a variable and set it equal to a new element, and it's a canvas element. If I try to use it, IntelliSense there. Oh, there it is. So you see, this is a bunch of stuff you can do to an element, any element. It's all applying here. But Visual Studio seems to know that this is a canvas element. I don't know how that's working, but if you do the get context, I'm pretty sure this does not apply to any other element. You guys know about this? Nothing? The context is how you draw stuff into the canvas, or whatever you want to do, paint things, shapes, pictures, move things around. And IntelliSense helped me out. I didn't need to go look in a book or anything. It even tells you what it returns, usually. There it is. It returns the canvas rendering context 2D. Even though I have to pass it which one I want, I pass it 2D in a string. I'm pretty sure right now there only is support for 2D. Is that correct? Anyone know for sure? I've never seen the 3D. Okay. Well, probably not IE10 then in this situation, obviously. So same thing goes for the context. We do CTX, which I did declare up here. We have all the methods there, arc, and what you can pass it, pretty much everything you want. Before, if you're going to try to develop any kind of game or anything in the canvas element using this new technology, you'd have to open a book and have 13 tabs open. It would be a mess. It would would take you forever. But now IntelliSense is going to help you out. You're going to know what you can pass. You're going to know all the functionality you have already. And IntelliSense references. These were here originally. If you see under the third bullet point, you could have tossed this at the top of any JavaScript document you want, and then you will get IntelliSense for that document you referenced. But nowadays, if you open up a template or start a template for an MVC4 project or one of the new ASP.NET projects, you're going to get this script and then an underscore reference.js. And you can toss all of your references in there, and they'll be global, so you don't have to micromanage all these references, and it will not be confusing. But do note that this was in earlier versions. And the great thing about this is it connects IntelliSense across scripts, and it makes it so you can develop in a more class-like manner. So if you want to make a game, for instance, and you have a player or a bad guy object, and you want to keep those separate like you would your C# classes and whatnot, you can do that and still have IntelliSense link between them. I'm going to show you why that underscore references.js is so magical. So this is, I think it's the basic MVC4 project. At the basic one, it didn't really give me any controls or views. I had to add one to host my JavaScript game. But I started a basic project, and it came with this thing right here. And you see I have some references in there. If I go to game, let me save this. I go to my game, can't call it class, but that's how I like to think of them now that we got these cool tools. I can say player. Actually, let me show you. PL. Okay. That's disappointing. But this does belong to the player that I declared globally over here. You should technically exist. If this script belongs in the same page that this script is on, you should be able to be mangled with over here. And we see we have access to his draw method, and we got speed. Yeah, we got speed there, and the tooltips are carried over. So you can really make robust, organized apps. The magical part about this references.js is it's included in a list in tools, options, and I have this path on the slide if you want to look it up later. Text editor, JavaScript, IntelliSense, it's really deep. And then change this to implicit web reference group, and you see it's listed there. So this, I guess, is what makes that references file global. So all your JavaScript documents can see it. It doesn't matter what folder they're in. You can add your own. So you can delete that references one. You can make your own. You can even put in files that don't exist on your server. So if you want to use the jQuery or whatnot, you can point it at an external website. Yeah? Correct. You could. Me? Why is it dying? Not plugged in. Thanks. Good call. So I thought that was pretty nice. There's a path if you want it. And IntelliSense automatically rebuilds. This is, I guess, a really minor change, but before, if you were to change, I guess, documentation or something in your script, you'd have to do Control-Shift-J, or else it wouldn't change in IntelliSense. And it happens automatically. And apparently there's improved scope accuracy. I've never run into this problem myself, but I tried to describe it with the comments. If you are outside of some function, you shouldn't be able to see what's inside some function, at least what's been declared there. You shouldn't be able to see its inner functions or its local variables. And same goes for that inner function. You shouldn't be able to see what's in this function if you're out here, IntelliSense-wise. But I guess there were a lot of problems with that in the older Visual Studio. I think that's a pun I put there. Makes sense. And if you guys have any questions so far, anybody? What do you mean? They did in this project, in the MVC4 project, have all the jQuery inside that references.js, and they also had them included in the scripts automatically in this template. But I nuked them because they just cluttered up the files I actually wanted you to see. So yes, they did have all, I don't know if they were all the jQuery files, but the UI and the good stuff and the stuff that comes with the templates that you see in MVC3, I guess, also came over to MVC4. They have the, what's that library that helps you determine the HTML5 things that don't work. Modernizer? Good call. They have that in there, and it's all included in the scripts and in that references thing, so they can be called from anywhere. But I nuked them so you could see them. But yeah. Anyone else? You want to stop for pizza, or should I keep going? I'm going to do it then. Coding experience is what I called the next section. Basically, it's the code outlining, brace matching, and highlighting, and the go-to definition feature that shows up in the context menu. So code outlining, before we did not have it, and now it happens automatically on functions. So you see that the draw function inside a player has a plus and sort of the midpoint. That happens for you automatically, and you can expand or whatever, but they don't have regions yet, which that was kind of a bummer. Now that I've said that, I also forgot to mention that the triple slash documentation is also kind of a bummer because it doesn't happen for you when you do the triple slash like it might for C# and VB. If you guys are familiar with going on top of a method and doing triple slash, and then you can populate it yourself. You have to type it all yourself, which is learned the hard way. I typed signature wrong when I first tried, and it would not pop up. Very frustrating. Spelled it wrong. The brace matching highlighting, it does seem dumb. It's a dumb feature. It's a small feature, but it could save you hours. If you have a nested mess of stuff, like I tried to simulate here with my functions, you could screw up. You're going to load it into your browser, and it's going to give you an error and probably point at the last line of your JavaScript and say something's wrong with the last line. If there's nothing wrong with the last line, you screwed up on a scope marker, and you're never going to find that one over there. You would never find it. But with the brace matching, you can just click around and see which one is highlighted, and then obviously that one does not belong there because this one is the closer. It's obvious. So that could save you hours potentially, such a small detail. What do you mean? Oh, yes. I did not know about that shortcut, but yeah, there was a button up there. I could just either highlight it and say reformat this code based on the rules that I told you in my settings or whatever. Then it would just, like I set I don't like the open scope on the same line as my function signature. It just bugs me. But I guess that's the way people do it in JavaScript. But I couldn't go from C# to JavaScript and have that be the case. So you see all my examples have it on the next line, which I personally think it helps me see. I don't know. What do you guys usually do? Go up on the same line as the signature? Huh? I suppose. Yeah, especially when they're doing the var all over in C# nowadays. The go-to definition, I'm sure the C# and VB developers are familiar with this. You can right-click on a function or a variable, and you can click on the go-to definition button, and it will bring you to where that function or variable was originally defined. And it works as long as the function or variable was declared in the same document you're doing it on, or if you had set up one of those references that I was talking about earlier, it will still work. And I'll show you, because I know you guys don't believe me. Here we are. So if I use my player, do a dot, tell them to draw. It whips right over to my player file. Is that not awesome? That would never have happened in 2010, except you probably could get extensions to do that. So it could have happened in 2010. Another thing I didn't prove to you was if I go to references, take out player, and go back in the game, not a clue. It does try to guess on things I've used previously, so it kind of remembers, but not a clue. There we go. Debugging. I wish I had more screenshots and could do a short demo of that, but it forces you to have IE 10. And I'm working on Windows 7, so that wasn't possible, I guess. Do you guys know of any way to install IE 10 on Windows 7? I got this message when I went to the website. This is the download page for IE 10, and it said, I need this guy. So that was a bummer. But I do know they added 2 windows to Visual Studio that will allow you to get access to the DOM Explorer window, I guess, and the JavaScript console window in Visual Studio, not necessarily in your browser. So that will be convenient, so you don't need to keep jumping around. And they pretty much do the same thing that they already did if you were using the Internet Explorer F12 developer tools. You can change the DOM, and you can see the DOM in real time. So if jQuery is manipulating it for you and you want to figure out exactly what's happening, you can see that. And you can still stay in Visual Studio, and you don't have to bounce to Internet Explorer. Same goes for the JavaScript console. And that means you cannot use that feature with any of your other favorite browsers. You have to stick with 2010, but hopefully 2010 will be way more compliant, so it won't even be a problem for you guys. Performance. This is probably my favorite addition, even though it's not specifically for JavaScript. You have to be using .NET features. The bundles. They are available in ASP.NET projects or MVC4 projects when you're using Visual Studio 2012, and they're also in Dev 11 if you're still using that. They easily combine your resources into a bundle, I guess they call it. It's an object, and you can point at several paths and say, I want all of these paths to be this path. So when you reference it on your page, it will go to your bundle, and it will all be in the same file. It will return one file, and it will be minified for you, so you don't have to worry about doing that yourself. I've seen this done. I always do it manually because, I don't know, I guess that's the only way I can figure it out. But you can do it with handlers. I've seen people have projects where you can do it with a handler. So if someone requests a JavaScript file, it will send them a bigger one that's kind of like a bundle. And perhaps that's how this is working at a deeper level, but I didn't investigate that far. But I will show you how to use it. Yeah. Minify. Oh, yes. So it basically means compressed. So everything, all the white space is gone. Everything's on one line or several lines, depending on how big it is on your screen. And it'll take out what it determines to be unnecessary characters. And that's about it. But I think 30%, they say, it reduces your file size depending on how many comments you have. It removes comments too, but that's what, when I said I did it the manual way, I'll show you how I used to do it. And then I'll show you how we can do it now with .NET. Okay. So this is that XML documentation page I was telling you about. Ooh. Just went here. And I would literally copy what I had in my JavaScript document, paste it in here, press this button, and it would pop out here pretty much on one line, all smashed together, unreadable, no comments. And then I would override what I had in my JavaScript file and save it as a .js.mn or .min for min. And you might see that often these days. There's like versions of jQuery you get. You might point at a jQuery external resource, and it will have a .min at the end. That will mean it will send you the minified version when you request it. That's how I used to do it. Now I never have to do that again when we have these bundles. There we go. So in our global ASAX, in the application start, we have bundle config register bundles, and it passes it a bundle collection. Net config is a C# file right here in an app start folder. This all came with this template. I didn't do any of this. It came with my MVC4 template, the basic one. I'm sure it comes with the more advanced ones that give you lots of stuff, but it was here. Did I open the right one? Oh, thanks. There we go. And this is the only thing I added. All this other stuff was here, like I was talking about, so jQuery and whatnot. It made these bundles for me, and I added this bundle. And you'll see these are my scripts, and normally I would plop them on my page like so. I've commented it out, scripts.render, and then pointing at the path where my script is. And I want to do it in the right order, so nothing comes up as undefined, and that's the way I wrote the application. So you can do it in the right order here, but instead of pointing it at bundle/game, which I made up that path right here, when I created my new script bundle and added it to my bundles collection, I can have it say whatever I want. I can have it say boogers/game, and as long as my reference points at the same place, it'll be just fine. And you do the .include, and then you just continue on listing all the files you want in the order you want them to be, and they will show up and they will be minified. Let me go ahead and run it. My apologies. I thought it was a pretty PG word. But this isn't my application. This has to be IE's fault. 5 meeting? I guess we can go get some pizza. You like? Oh, break. Yes, I see. That was another new feature I didn't even mention, but it was all over the place. Probably should put it in as a bullet point. If you set a, yeah, I kind of breezed through that slide. But yeah, if you put a breakpoint on the line, I have not tested this, but apparently that line is where you will break, even in the minified version. It'll bring you to that code in the minified version. So that's better than nothing. I'm sure there's settings where you can say in debug mode, do not do the minifying in the bundle, but still have it bundled, don't do the minifying.
You haven't tested this IDE.
Yeah, I just kind of, but yeah, I'm sure it's awesome because Microsoft is. What the heck? Oh, there we go. So this is the game, I guess. You can shoot and stuff, but more importantly, if I go to network, this is all just one element. It's a canvas element, and I've just manipulated it with JavaScript with Visual Studio's help. Start capturing, and I'll reload the page. Hopefully it goes quicker than last time. Oh, there it is. So you see the /bundle/game. That is the JavaScript, all of it, for my whole game. All those files you saw, the game and the bullets and the bad guys, and it's just in one file. This is important because when you're building a huge, robust JavaScript application, you don't want the browser to have to request 30 files. It's going to be really slow. You want to minimize the number of requests sent to the server. So this is done for us with .NET. If I go to detailed view, I think we can see the mangled mess they give us. There it is. So that's what it would look like, the minified stuff. And go to view source. Yeah, all we have is that one script in there. So it's awesome. I think it's awesome. You guys have any questions about that? Is the script inside Visual Studio? Oh, that script, that snippet, that minified thing. That was Internet Explorer after they've already got it from the server and interpreted it. They're showing me what they have, Internet Explorer, in my client browser, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I guess it is what Visual Studio sent, but it's my browser telling me what my browser has instead of the other way around. Does that make sense?
I'm curious about when that is happening to like as IIS serves up the website, it's things like this after IIS, or is it Visual Studio doing it? Server. Visual Studio did it.
I gotcha. I'm not positive, but my guess is it's the former, that they're going to do it on the fly. So when you request that resource, they're like, oh, this resource is actually all these resources, and they're supposed to be minified, so let's do that right now and send it back to the server or to the browser. I do not think they do it in advance. I don't think IIS is necessarily doing it, but no, I don't think it's happening at compile time, is what I'm trying to say. I think it happens on the fly. When you ask for, what's that? That's true, yeah. So
then that means there's got to be version of IAS has system here?
Why do you say that?
Well, because presumably older version. Visual Studio building code.
I believe it is 4. That's what I assumed also. Since we got this project from the .NET 4 and Visual Studio 2012, I just figured it's automatically in there. It must be new to .NET 4 features. Yeah, that's what I meant. MVC 4, sorry. .NET 4.5, is that what it is at? Okay. Yep. But, yeah, I guess not a clue. What just happened there? Those pictures, they're bundles. It did look like it was. Yeah. That's the menu. I did run into some issues when I tried to get this bundle thing to work because I kept running into documentation that wasn't really well labeled. It was for Dev 11, and it has since changed for 2012 RC. So this is the old way you'll see in Dev 11, and I tried to get that to work, and it took me like 45 minutes to figure out that this is the way I actually have to do it nowadays. It's just a little bit different syntax, I guess. The objects don't work the same. But just beware when you go home and try to get this to work, stay away from that first snippet. It's not going to go. Another caveat is that the browser seems to cache my bundle a lot more often than it seems to cache my JavaScript files individually. So if I would normally change my JavaScript file and I have them all referenced on my document separately, not using the bundles technology, it normally doesn't cache anything. I can make a change and refresh the page, and there it is. But now with these bundles, I've noticed I'll make a change, refresh the page, and it's cached. It was the same as it was. If I do a Control F5, it's fine. It shows my change. So I don't know if there's some kind of setting where you can do, I don't know, time to live or something like that in the actual header of what's being sent. I'm sure some smart guy will figure that out soon and then update this, because this is probably going to be a problem for a lot of people.
I think I was watching, there's a video clip on Scott Justin, or those search Scott Justin.
Okay.
He goes over that. There's a way you can go ahead and put a GUID on the back of that for that. So every time you go ahead and generate
smart. Just toss GUID on the end. And that will show up right on, I guess, my view in this case. It will toss the GUID on and the GUID will line up with what.
It generates it. It appends it when it generates it, so it's different files.
Does that come from when I do the, what is it, scripts whatever on the view? Does that know how to do it?
I've done enough of it.
Okay.
I just happened to watch that
I'm
video,
sorry.
And he was going in there. He was also saying on the bundling, you can do it by directory, too. The way you can go ahead and specify by directory, all the JSs and pick all the, minify files or whatever you want by directory.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't mention that. And when you do it by directory, it even gives you another parameter you have to use that's like a rule or something, and you can do all star.js or something star.js or maybe star.min if you only want to select minified ones, which minifies for you, so I'm not sure that's a great idea.
That's all covered in that video.
Yep. If you do not have access to Dev 11 or 2012, at least that feature where we have the bundling is available in that NuGet package, the Microsoft.web.optimization. And there's a few other extensions. There's web standards. You should definitely get that one. And JScript editor extensions. They're not yet calling it JavaScript, but at least you'll get a lot of the documentation features that I was talking about. And Web Essentials, I don't know what's in there, but it sounded important. Web Essentials. And that concludes the meeting. Do you guys have any more questions? Yeah, yeah. No virtual questions?
You have some giveaway. So Tom, I'll have you pick number 1 through 10. Or sorry, is everybody signed up?
1 through 10? Uh-oh. Yeah.